afternoon. I can't tell you, how elated I am on this occasion because this book, Vaadivaasal, has a very interesting publishing history. This novella was first published in 1959, and it is a misnomer to say that it was first published because it was not published, reprinted for another 40 years. So that was the state of this classic. So when I first read this book in 1988, it was a small, the first edition, which was such a small, modestly printed book. Then something like 35 years later, one more edition came out and it was sold out. Then again 10 years passed, and that is when Kannan Sundaram intervened. He talked to the family. Yes, the author has one son. The author, as generally Indian authors or Tamil authors go, is a very difficult person to deal with. He was an idealist. He was a difficult person, not because he had a big ego or he was an arrogant person. He was an idealist who came from the Gandhian generation and wanted to do things in a certain way. So, and then can you believe it? In the next 20 years, can anybody guess how many copies Kalachuvadu has sold of this book? First 60 years, 2000 copies sold. Then in the next 20 years, any guesses? He has sold 100,000 copies. Okay? And reserve your applause for the subsequent information that I'm going to give you. He negotiated and published the English translation of this novella, and it was published by Oxford University Press. Then he did something unimaginable. The word to describe it is he fleeced a Tamil producer into parting with a substantial sum for film rights. Filmmakers in India believe that everything in the world, every intellectual product in the world is for them to use without sparing one single penny for the author or the publisher. In fact, what really gave me great happiness, I would like to disclose the figure, but it is covered by the confidentiality clause. When word got around that producer said, I have dealt with so many people in my entire film career. Heroes, heroines, music directors. I have never seen a more ruthless negotiator than Kannan Sundaram. I was so delighted. I was almost going to say, Kannan, you can, you need not pay royalty for me this year, because I was so happy to, see a film producer on his knees before a Tamil writer and a Tamil publisher. So this is the background, but the surrounding story should not take away from the intrinsic worth of this book. Sisu Chellappa is known in the Tamil world for launching a little magazine in 1959. He would print only 300 or 400 copies. The journal came regularly for 10 years. He was a short story writer. He came from the generation of the 1930s Manikudi, the great literary journal. And then he was part of many of the mainstream presses. And then he launched this Eduthu magazine. It was the pioneering little magazine which published new poetry in Tamil and established new poetry as a genre in Tamil literary culture. He also was the pioneer of systematic literary criticism. He wrote a lot of short stories. he wrote poetry, he wrote novels, and he also wrote literary criticism. But he is primarily remembered for his contribution to writing literary history and literary criticism. The exception was this particular novella. Many of you would be familiar with the famous or infamous or notorious case regarding Jallikattu some 7-8 years ago. This novel is probably one of the first, I mean, it's not the first, but first extended treatment of this very ancient sport. This is misleadingly translated into English as bullfight. This is not the Spanish bullfight where the bulls are ritually killed in the arena. This is actually a more evenly matched tussle between man and animal, where often the animal has the upper hand, and the so-called bull tamers and the audience are at more risk. So it is actually not animal lovers who should be protesting, but humanists who should be protesting about this. We'll not go into the politics, but as I said, this has a very long history. My dear friend and great translator M.L. Thangappa translated the poetry from Sangam literature, where you have elaborate descriptions of this particular sport. Traditionally, it was set in the pastoral land where young men who could tame the bull, it was called Eru Tazhuvudal. Literally, it translates as embracing the bull. So it is not killing the bull or humiliating the bull. You actually try to catch the hump of the bull, which has been, the bull which has been trained, which has been well fed and has really sharp horns. The idea is to embrace the bull and make it submit to the much weaker human being. So this is the story. And we know that over 2000 years, this sport has been practiced in various forms. Sangam literature talks about it. The great Tamil epic Silappadigaram talks about it. The medieval commentaries talk about it. And later in the 20th century, we find all the earliest fiction writers have written stories based on this particular sport. And all Tamil films, there are so many Tamil films where the bullfight is featured. In fact, any hero worth the name would have had to tame at least one bull in any one of his films. It can be MGR, it can be Shivaji, it can be Rajinikanth, it can be Kamal Haasan, it can be Sarath Kumar. Now, so this is so central to Tamil culture. And what has happened in the last 20-30 years in the larger context of, the way many of us are feeling crushed by the road rollering effect of a monolithic culture. In response to that, and also in response to, globalization and other challenges to Tamil identity, this sport, which originated in the pastoral land, has now become the identity of Tamils. I was present at the Marina Beach in January of 2017. I've never seen such a sight in my life. The spontaneous gathering of people, ostensibly around the threat to the game of Jallikattu, actually transformed itself into including many other of the concerns of a democratic society. So in this context, this book is being released. Graphic novels is one of the first graphic, probably the first graphic novel of a graphic picturization of a Tamil novel. Just 2 weeks ago, I had the privilege of releasing the Tamil version of this graphic novel. Now I am so honored that this book is now being published in English by a leading publisher. I not just congratulate, but I thank Simon Schuster and especially Elizabeth Kuruvilla for taking up this book with great interest and enthusiasm. Nothing warms the Tamil heart than, the acknowledgement of Tamil culture outside our shores, because we always have a feeling that, Tamils have got short shrift, they have got been shortchanged, they have not got their due. This might be a valid, this might be a valid complaint or it might be an invalid complaint, but we all feel that. And so we are so happy that this book is being released at such a prestigious event, and that a very knowledgeable audience, small as it is present on the occasion of the unveiling of this book. With these words, let me hand over the mic to Elizabeth. Kannan.
Yeah, I'll begin by thanking Elizabeth and Simon Schuster for publishing the English edition. And this is also, we already have contracts for this work to be published in Bangla, Marathi, and Telugu, and negotiating with other languages as well. And I sort of displayed this work with the poster and some printouts at the Frankfurt Book Fair last year, and I could see there was a lot of interest there. So we are also looking forward to signing some international contracts with this work. I'll very briefly say how we got into doing this book. So it must be 4 or 5 years ago, before COVID, when I thought why not try our hands with the graphic novel. It's so popular everywhere, and it may be a way of bridging the gap a bit with the new generation and Tamil literature, if we could take it to this new format. And when such a thought comes, one is also excited, but I'm also very anxious that I should not be the publisher who first tried his hand at the graphic novel and then failed, and sort of blocked the way for another 10 years for anybody else to try, because it's tried and failed model. So I was thinking about what should we do. Should we do a new novel? In that case, I was not aware of any Tamil writer who was so familiar with the form of graphic novel that he could write a graphic novel himself. So that was, maybe if it is there, then it's a very small list. And then who's the graphic artist who's going to draw for this novel? And I tried to talk to my friends, artists, check out a few samples. And then I thought, that maybe probably Vaadivaasal should be my first choice. The reason is that it's the way the novel was created. Chellappa, in the 1950s, he took his small camera and nearly shot over 150 pictures of this bullfight. And with those pictures, he started writing this novel. I think it's quite novel for his times. And he was also, I think, very clearly, if you read the novel, that very much influenced by Hemingway's writings. And so I thought the way it was created itself is very image-based way of writing a work. So probably it will yield itself very nicely to a graphic novel. So I spoke to Perumal Murugan and he agreed. And so first thing I did was I bought him a bunch of good graphic novels. I sent it to him so that he gets an idea of how this works. And then the big challenge was to look at the artist, because that is definitely the central project of this graphic novel, is to find an artist. My ambition always was to take it, as always, beyond Tamil. So do we have an artist whose aesthetics is international enough to create this work? And just by pure chance that we were both invited to the festival of, there was this exchange of book fairs between France and India, and France was guest of honor in NBT Book Fair, New Delhi in 2023, I think, and 22, India was the guest of honor in Paris Book Fair. So we were invited by the French Institute for that event. And there, by chance, we met Appupen, who showed me his works there. And right there, all three of us started talking about creating this work together. And come 23 January, when Jallikattu actually happens in Tamil Nadu, I invited Appupen to travel around this bullfight area, look at how this is done, how it is trained, how the sport happens. And he spent a week traveling around that area. And he looked at all the images of all that. And then started working with Perumal Murugan. I think they sat together on 5 or 6 sittings over the last 2 years, where the initial script of Perumal Murugan kept changing as Appupen made his drawings, because the primary thing is how Appupen makes the drawings, and accordingly we adapted the script of Perumal Murugan to complete the novel into a graphic novel, adapt the novel. So those sessions were very interesting from what I could hear. I was not present in those sessions. They included Perumal Murugan explaining the nuances of the sport, the novel to Appupen. And in some points when he could not really get the nuance, I heard that Perumal Murugan also acted some of the scenes for Appupen to understand perfectly. So I think that their equation, the chemistry worked perfectly. And we are very happy that this novel was published in Tamil in December. And in last Chennai Book Fair, we managed to sell about 500 copies. And I was even more delighted to hear from my friend Jiva sitting here that 10 other publishers are now plotting to create graphic novels. And that really warms my heart, because that is the most important thing there. Instead of saying that don't do it.
Does the novel have a plot?
So we are looking to see more graphics novel in Tamil in the coming years. We ourselves are planning more projects, the same team, to at least do one work per year. So I think this is a good start, and I'm really happy that it immediately does. It's unheard of that a contract signed 45 days ago. It's a book now. I think this is really fast. I have never heard of this happen before. So I think it is also shows that how much importance Simon Sousa and Elizabeth are giving this work. We are really happy about that. I hope it sells equally well in English. Thank you.
Thank you both, Kannan. I think a lot of thanks goes to you for conceptualizing the graphic novel in the way it was, So, and it was 45 days, but I had an almost perfect work in my hand when it came to me. So, and thank you so much for, telling us about C.S. Chellappa, because that is, I think, one of 2 reasons why I was immediately interested in the book. I met Kannan at Frankfurt, and I just gone to say hi to him, and he had some samples of the graphic novel with him, and I think it was the first time I had encountered C.S. Chellappa's this work of his, and it was the first time I heard about him, and I think that is what translations do. It is our country with so many languages, so many cultures. Every region in Tamil Nadu is vastly different from another. In fact, many years ago, I had gone to interview Perumal Murugan in his hometown, Namakkal. And when I saw Appupen's artwork here, it just immediately struck me that I was possibly in this very place, So the landscape is so distinctive to that particular region of Tamil Nadu. The main reason why I found this book very interesting was this particular collaboration that happened between Perumal Murugan, between Appupen, both immensely gifted authors themselves with important bodies of work. And and then it's not very often that that authors in India who are both very successful tend to interact, engage with the work of another author, and in such an active manner. And that itself, I think, is such an interesting experiment. Because this, while the original was written by C.S. Chellappa, what did it become in Perumal Murugan's hands? What did it then become in Appupen's hands? Those are interesting questions that you ask yourself when you're reading the book. As Appupen described to me, he had, and Kannan was saying, once Perumal Murugan scripted scripted the graphic novel. They had sessions where Perumal Murugan read out the Tamil script to him, and Appupen then translated it into English. And a lot of his translations, his choice of words, was based on the tonality of how Perumal Murugan read out the Tamil script. The fact that it's a graphic novel, you see so much of the emotions, the question of pride, the cunning, grief, all of it playing out in the artwork, in the look of the zamindar who plays an important part in this story, who's he has this look of a very benevolent, powerful man, whose pride is eventually hurt by what happens in the course of this story. And it's exciting to be able to see all of this playing out in a different format. So I think a collaboration like this, eventually, the question of whose novel is it, comes to you, and that's an interesting question to engage with while reading something like this. So, and I'm happy to note that this is the first of many that several, at least, that Perumal Murugan and Appupen would be working on. And thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I hope you all will read the book, and would be glad to hear your thoughts. The copies are available here at the bookstore, so please do get one.